The knock at the door echoed through the small home, jarring Sarah from her peaceful morning routine. Heart pounding, she peered through the peephole, met with the stern gaze of a uniformed officer. Swallowing hard, she unlatched the lock and pulled the door open. "Ma'am, I'm Officer Harris with the Homeowners Association. We've received a complaint about your wind chime. It violates the neighborhood's noise ordinance." His words were clipped, his expression offering no room for argument. Sarah felt the color drain from her face as she glanced back at the delicate chimes swaying gently in the breeze. "But it's barely making any sound at all. And I'm pregnant. The chimes help me relax." Her hand instinctively went to her swollen belly, protective. The officer's brow furrowed. "I understand, ma'am, but the rules are clear. You'll need to remove the chime immediately or face a fine." He reached into his pocket, producing a slip of paper. "Here's the citation. You have 48 hours to comply." Hands trembling, Sarah accepted the citation, her eyes scanning the imposing fine amount. "This can't be happening," she whispered, her throat tight with emotion. Her gaze darted back to the officer, pleading, "Please, can't you make an exception? I'll keep the chime as quiet as possible. I promise." Officer Harris shook his head, unmoved. "I'm sorry, ma'am, but I have to enforce the rules. If you don't remove the chime, we'll have no choice but to issue the penalty." With a curt nod, he turned and strode back to his patrol car, leaving Sarah rooted to the spot, her heart racing. Slowly, she closed the door, leaning against it as a wave of nausea washed over her. How could this be happening? The chime had been a source of comfort for her, a way to soothe her frayed nerves during the stress of her high-risk pregnancy. And now, just like that, it was being taken away. Sarah's gaze fell to the citation, the numbers blurring as tears welled in her eyes. Their family was already struggling to make ends meet. There was no way they could afford this. She imagined the looks on her husband's face when she told him, the panic and frustration. This was the last thing they needed. Gripping the paper tightly, Sarah made her way to the living room, her steps heavy. She paused in front of the wind chime, running her fingers along the delicate chimes. "I'm so sorry," she whispered, her voice cracking. With a heavy heart, she began to dismantle the beloved fixture, each chime falling silent as it was removed. Later that evening, the front door burst open as Tom stormed in, his face flushed with anger. "I can't believe this. How dare they fine you over a damn wind chime?" He fumed, his hands clenched into tight fists. Sarah looked up from where she sat on the couch, her eyes red from crying. "I tried to reason with the officer, but he wouldn't budge. Said we have 48 hours to remove it or pay the fine." She handed Tom the citation, watching as his eyes narrowed, studying the document. "This is outrageous. That chime has been up for years, and it's never bothered anyone before." Tom ran a hand through his hair, his frustration palpable. "We're barely scraping by as it is. There's no way we can afford this." Reaching out, Sarah placed a gentle hand on his arm, trying to soothe him. "I know, honey. I'm so sorry. I feel terrible about this." She chewed her lip, her brow creased with worry. "What are we going to do?" Tom let out a heavy sigh, his shoulders sagging. "I don't know." He sank down onto the couch beside her, his gaze fixed on the empty spot where the wind chime had once hung. "This is the last thing we need right now, with the baby on the way and everything else we're dealing with." Sarah nodded, her own anxiety rising. "Maybe we can try to reason with them, explain our situation. Surely they'd be willing to make an exception, just this once." Her voice was laced with desperation, the need to find a solution overwhelming. "I doubt it." Tom's tone was bitter, his jaw set in a hard line. "These HOA types, they don't care about people's real problems. All they care about is enforcing their stupid rules, no matter the cost." He let out a frustrated growl, running a hand over his face. Sarah watched him, her heart aching. She knew how hard he'd been working, the long hours and constant stress of trying to provide for their family. This was the last thing he needed. "What if we just take the chime down?" she suggested hesitantly. "I know it means a lot to me, but I can't bear the thought of you having to deal with this on top of everything else." Tom's gaze snapped to hers, his expression softening. "I know how much that chime means to you, Sarah. I don't want you to have to give it up, especially not while you're pregnant." He reached out, enveloping her hand in his own. "We'll figure this out, I promise, even if it means going to war with the HOA. Sarah felt a glimmer of hope, her fingers tightening around his. "Okay," she whispered, nodding. "I trust you, Tom. We'll get through this together." The next morning, Tom rose early, determination etched on his face. He knew he had to act quickly if they were going to beat the deadline. Pulling on his jacket, he headed out the door, a plan already forming in his mind. First, he made his way to the HOA office, determined to plead his case in person. The receptionist eyed him warily as he approached the counter, her lips pursed in a thin line. "I need to speak with someone about the citation my wife received," Tom said, his voice tense but polite. The receptionist arched a perfectly sculpted brow. "I'm sorry, sir, but the rules are very clear. We don't make exceptions, even for special circumstances." Tom felt his frustration mounting, but he forced himself to remain calm. "Please, my wife is pregnant and the wind chime helps her relax. We simply can't afford the fine right now." He leaned in, his gaze earnest. "Isn't there anything you can do?" The receptionist's expression remained impassive. "I understand your situation, but our hands are tied. If you don't remove the chime, the fine will be issued as stated." She turned back to her computer, effectively dismissing him. Suppressing a sigh, Tom nodded reluctantly and headed for the door. As he stepped outside, he paused, his eyes narrowing. There had to be another way to resolve this, some loophole or avenue he hadn't explored yet. Determined, he made his way to the local news station, where he proceeded to plead his case to the receptionist. "My pregnant wife is being fined by the HOA over a wind chime. It's wrong, and I need to get the story out there." The receptionist listened intently, her brow furrowing with concern. "That does sound like an unfair situation. Let me see if I can get one of our reporters to look into it." Tom felt a glimmer of hope. "Thank you, I really appreciate it. This chime means so much to my wife, and we simply can't afford the fine." The receptionist nodded sympathetically. "I'll make sure someone looks into it right away. Hopefully, we can get some public attention on this and get the HOA to reconsider." With a grateful nod, Tom turned and headed back home, his steps a little lighter. If the news station could help shed some light on their plight, maybe, just maybe, they could find a way to keep the wind chime and avoid the crippling fine. True to her word, the news station receptionist wasted no time in setting the wheels in motion. Within hours, a reporter named Samantha arrived at Tom and Sarah's doorstep, her eyes alight with curiosity. "Mr. and Mrs. Hanson, thank you for agreeing to speak with me," she said, her voice warm and professional. "I understand you're facing an issue with your homeowners association over a wind chime." Tom nodded, ushering her inside. "That's right. My wife, Sarah, is pregnant and the chime helped her relax. But the HOA has cited us for a noise violation and is demanding we pay a hefty fine if we don't remove it." Samantha's brow furrowed with concern as she listened, her gaze flicking to Sarah, who hovered nervously beside Tom. "That seems incredibly unfair, especially given your circumstances. Can you tell me more about what's been happening?" With a deep breath, Sarah recounted the events of the previous day, her voice trembling with emotion. "I just don't understand how they can be so heartless. This chime means so much to me, and the fine would be a huge financial burden." Samantha nodded sympathetically. "I can certainly understand your frustration. Have you tried to reason with the HOA or explore any other options?" "We went to the office, but they were completely unwilling to make an exception," Tom interjected, his jaw set in a firm line. They just kept repeating the rules and telling us we had to remove the chime or pay the fine. The reporter's expression grew contemplative. That's unfortunate. Well, I'd like to see if we can shed some light on this situation and get the HOA to reconsider their stance. She turned to Sarah, offering a reassuring smile. Don't worry, we're going to do everything we can to help. Sarah felt a glimmer of hope, her hand instinctively going to her belly. Thank you, that means so much. I can't bear the thought of losing this chime. It's been a source of comfort for me during this difficult pregnancy. Samantha nodded, her gaze sympathetic. I'll make sure to convey the importance of this chime to you and your family. Hopefully, we can get the HOA to see reason and make an exception in your case. With a newfound determination, Samantha began gathering information and preparing to shoot a news segment, determined to shine a light on the Hansons' plight and hopefully sway the HOA's decision. The following day, the news crew arrived at the Hansons' modest home, cameras and equipment in tow. Samantha greeted Tom and Sarah warmly, her expression reflecting the gravity of the situation. All right, let's get started, she said, gesturing to the crew. I want to make sure we capture the importance of this wind chime to you and your family. Sarah nodded, her hand instinctively going to her belly. It's been such a source of comfort to me during this pregnancy. The sound of the chimes helps me relax, especially when I'm feeling so anxious and overwhelmed. Samantha turned to the camera, her voice clear and poised. As you can see, this wind chime holds deep emotional significance for Sarah. But the Homeowners Association in her neighborhood has issued a citation, demanding that the chime be removed or face a hefty fine. The camera panned to Tom, his brow furrowed with concern. We're already struggling to make ends meet, and this fine would be a huge financial burden. It just doesn't seem fair that they're forcing us to choose between our comfort and our finances. Samantha nodded sympathetically. Especially given Sarah's high-risk pregnancy, this chime has become an essential source of solace for her. The Hansons have tried to reason with the HOA, but their pleas have fallen on deaf ears. The reporter turned back to the camera, her expression grave. This case highlights the frustrating reality that many homeowners face. Rigid rules imposed by HOAs that often fail to account for personal circumstances and individual needs. The Hansons are hoping that by bringing attention to their plight, the HOA will reconsider their stance and make an exception. As the interview continued, the Hansons shared more of their story, their voices tinged with a mix of desperation and determination. Samantha listened intently, her empathy evident in her body language and tone. Once the filming was complete, Samantha assured the couple that the news segment would air that evening, promising to do everything in her power to sway public opinion and put pressure on the HOA. As the crew packed up and departed, Tom and Sarah exchanged a hopeful glance, their fingers intertwined. Do you think this will work? Sarah asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Tom gave her hand a gentle squeeze. I don't know, but it's our best shot. We have to try, for our family. He pulled her into a warm embrace, offering a silent prayer that the news report would be the key to resolving their dilemma. That evening, the Hansons sat anxiously in their living room, eyes glued to the television as Samantha's news report began to air. The segment opened with a somber tone, immediately capturing the gravity of the situation. Tonight, we bring you the story of a pregnant woman who is facing a heartbreaking choice: remove a beloved wind chime or pay a hefty fine to her homeowners association. Sarah Hanson, who is currently in a high-risk pregnancy, says the chime has been a source of comfort and relaxation during this difficult time. The camera then cut to footage of Sarah, her eyes shining with unshed tears. The sound of the chimes just helps me feel calmer, especially when I'm feeling so anxious and overwhelmed. It's been such a source of solace for me. Tom's face appeared next, his expression a mix of frustration and concern. We're already struggling to make ends meet, and this fine would be a huge financial burden. It just doesn't seem fair that they're forcing us to choose between our comfort and our finances." Samantha's voice took over once more, her tone grave. Despite the Hansons' pleas, the Homeowners Association has refused to make an exception, citing the neighborhood's strict noise ordinance. If the chime is not removed within the 48-hour deadline, the family will be slapped with a hefty fine. The scene then shifted to an interview with a representative from the HOA, who appeared unyielding in their stance. "The rules are in place for a reason, and we have to enforce them equally across the community. We understand the Hansons' situation, but we can't make exceptions, even in special circumstances." As the report continued, Samantha emphasized the human cost of the HOA's decision, painting a vivid picture of the emotional toll it was taking on the Hansons. She highlighted Sarah's high-risk pregnancy and the importance of the chime's calming influence, appealing to the viewer's sense of empathy. Finally, the segment concluded with a call to action, urging viewers to reach out to the HOA and voice their concerns. "This is a story that hits close to home for many of us," Samantha said, her gaze piercing. "Let's see if we can change the course of this unjust situation and give the Hansons the support they need." As the report came to an end, Tom and Sarah turned to each other, their eyes shining with a mixture of hope and trepidation. "Do you think it worked?" Sarah whispered, her hand instinctively going to her belly. Tom pulled her close, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. "I don't know, but at least now the whole world knows what we're going through. All we can do is wait and see." In the days that followed, the Hansons found themselves at the center of a growing social media firestorm. The news report had struck a chord with viewers who were outraged by the HOA's seemingly heartless and inflexible stance. Thousands of comments flooded the news station's website and social media pages, expressing outrage and calling for the HOA to reconsider their decision. Some even went so far as to threaten a boycott or protest if the chime was not allowed to remain. The pressure quickly mounted, and it wasn't long before the HOA was forced to respond. A spokesperson for the organization released a statement, acknowledging the public outcry and promising to reevaluate the situation. "We understand the concerns raised by the community and the Hanson family," the statement read. "While we must uphold the neighborhood's rules and regulations, we will be taking a closer look at this specific case to determine if an exception can be made." Tom and Sarah watched the developments unfold with a mix of hope and trepidation. They knew that the public attention could work in their favor, but they also understood the HOA's reluctance to back down from their position. As the deadline for the chime's removal drew closer, the Hansons found themselves in a state of anxious limbo, unsure of what the future held. Sarah, in particular, was feeling the strain, her pregnancy-related stress compounded by the ongoing battle with the HOA. One evening, as they sat together on the couch, Tom reached out and grasped Sarah's hand, his expression filled with determination. "No matter what happens, we're going to get through this together," he said, his voice low but resolute. Sarah nodded, a small smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "I know. I'm so tired of fighting, you know. I just want this to be over, one way or the other." Tom pulled her into a gentle embrace, his hand rubbing soothing circles on her back. "I understand, love. But we can't give up now, not when we're so close." As they sat there, the sound of the wind chime drifting in through the open window, Sarah felt a renewed sense of determination. She knew that they had come too far to back down, and she was determined to see this through, no matter the cost. The day of the HOA's decision arrived, and the Hansons found themselves once again seated in front of the television, their hearts pounding with anticipation. The news report had been aired repeatedly over the past week, and the public outcry had only grown stronger. As the HOA spokesperson appeared on the screen, Tom and Sarah gripped each other's hands, their fingers intertwined. After careful consideration and a review of the Hanson family's situation, the Homeowners Association has decided to make an exception in this case, the spokesperson announced, much to the Hansons' relief. The wind chime can remain in place, and the fine will be waived. A collective sigh of relief escaped the Hansons, and Sarah felt tears of joy welling in her eyes. We understand the importance of this chime to Mrs. Hanson's well-being during her high-risk pregnancy, and we believe that the comfort it provides outweighs the minor disruption to the neighborhood's noise levels, the spokesperson continued. Tom pulled Sarah close, pressing a grateful kiss to her forehead. "I can't believe it," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. They actually listened. The spokesperson went on to explain that the HOA had been swayed by the outpouring of public support for the Hansons, acknowledging that their rigid stance had struck a nerve with the community. "We're grateful to the Hanson family for bringing this issue to light, and to the members of the public who reached out to voice their concerns," the spokesperson said. "This experience has taught us the importance of considering the unique circumstances of our residents and being more flexible in our approach." As the segment concluded, Tom and Sarah found themselves surrounded by a sense of relief and gratitude. The battle had been won, and they could now focus on the joyous arrival of their new addition without the added stress of the HOA's demands. "I can't believe it," Sarah murmured, her hand caressing her belly. "This chime has been such a comfort to me, and I'm so glad we fought for it." Tom nodded, pulling her into a warm embrace. "Me too, love. Sometimes it's worth fighting for the things that matter most, no matter how daunting the challenge may seem." As the gentle chimes drifted through the air, the Hansons knew that this victory was not just about a wind chime, but about standing up for their family and the value of compassion in the face of unyielding bureaucracy. It was a testament to the power of community and the importance of never giving up, even in the face of seemingly insurmountable odds.